Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk About Human Rights, the show in which we discuss all things related to human rights. I'm your host, Julz Allender, and I am part of the California chapter of Youth for Human Rights International. Youth for Human Rights International's purpose is to enlighten and educate people around the world on what their human rights are, with specific focus on the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. And with this education, to enable and inspire the youth of today as our leaders of tomorrow to stand up for these rights for themselves and all people on earth. As you know, for each show, we like to take up one right and try to broaden your understanding of how this right is important to you and for your loved ones. And for today's show, we'll be looking at human right number 1, which states, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They're endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. Let's take a look at a short video on this specific human right.
Can you tell which of these children was not born free? Can you tell which of these children was not born equal? Can you tell which of these children does not deserve to be treated with dignity? We can't either. Human right number 1. We are all born free and equal. What are human rights? Find out at youthforhumanrights.org.
Let's examine these ideas a little more closely. The United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights starts out with Article number 1. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. All humans, as in everyone that is a human being, are born free, meaning unencumbered by debt or restraint, and equal to everyone else. There's no mention of a certain geographical location, race, political identity, or any personal preference. It just says, all humans. So just in case you had any doubt, you are included in this statement. You are born free and equal. The next part deserves some time spent digging into it. The right goes on to say, are born in dignity and rights. Dignity is defined by Webster as the quality or state of being worthy, honored, or esteemed. All human beings are born with the quality or state of being worthy, honored, or esteemed. A person does not need to earn dignity. It is their birthright. They don't need to prove themselves. A person themselves may believe they can lose their dignity mostly by mistreating others, but it is not something another can take away from them. The reason I'm emphasizing this particular point is, in our society, people with bad intent try to muddy up this idea. They suggest that maybe some people don't deserve to be treated with dignity, and they will choose the most insignificant quality about another person and use it to justify not granting them the dignity they are entitled to as a human being. The clothes they wear, the accent in their voice, or the color of their skin. These are insignificant qualities when making a judgment about another human being. Some in past history, and even today, have gone so far as to try to suggest that some people are subhuman, as if there is even such a thing, to justify mistreating them. What is important about another human being is how they treat others. Do they contribute to the betterment of society? Are they responsible to their family, their place of work, and their community? And not just in the moment, but over time. Because who among us has not failed at work or in a desperate moment mistreated another? Only by being aware of these qualities can you truly place judgment upon another. And if you do find that they are a scoundrel or a criminal, nowhere is it suggested or does it say, so now you can treat them in an undignified manner. No. You are still honor-bound to treat them with the dignity that they were born with. It is a truly powerful individual that can treat others with dignity no matter the circumstances. This right, though, goes further and says, they are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. What is this saying? Is it just as another should treat you as an equal and with dignity, and then it goes to reason that you should have a conscience and treat everyone else as an equal and with dignity? The other point to be made is that you should lead by doing the same. You should set an example by treating others with dignity. In the wonderful essay written by the 21st century philosopher L. Ron Hubbard, What is Greatness?, he points out and says, and I quote, "The hardest task one can have is to continue to love his fellows despite all reasons he should not. And the true sign of sanity and greatness is to so continue. For the one who can achieve this, there is abundant hope. For those who cannot, there is only sorrow, hatred, and despair. And these are not the things which greatness or sanity or happiness are made. A primary trap is to succumb to invitations to hate. There are those who appoint one their executioners, sometimes for the sake of safety of others. It is necessary to act, but is not necessary to also hate them. To do one's task without becoming furious at others who seek to prevent one is a mark of greatness and sanity, and only then can one be happy." He goes on later in the essay to say, and I quote, "It is true that beings are frail and commit wrongs. Man is basically good, but man can act badly. He only acts badly when his acts, done for order and safety of others, are done with hatred, or when his disciplines are founded on the safety for himself, regardless of all others, or worse, when he acts only out of a taste for cruelty. To preserve no order at all is an insane act. One need only look at the possessions and the environment of the insane to realize this. The able keep good order. When cruelty in the name of discipline dominates a race, that race has been taught to hate, and that race is doomed. The real lesson is to learn to love. He who would walk scatheless during his days must learn this. Never use what is done to one as a basis for hatred. Never desire revenge. It requires strength to love man and to love him despite all invitations to do otherwise, all provocations and all reasons why one should not. Happiness and strength endure only in the absence of hate. To hate alone is the road to disaster. To love is the road to strength. And to love in spite of all is the secret of greatness and may very well be the greatest secret in this universe." The reason I'm reading this to you is as you travel through life, not everyone will treat you with equality and dignity, but that is no reason for you to do the same to them and be like them. You should stay true to the ideal of this first of our many human rights, that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood and make that ideal a prominent fact in our culture. Before we get to our special guest today for the show, let's take a look around the world at some good news on what occurred in human rights. A fourth-generation Black American farmer is bringing 21st century agriculture into the lives of youth from marginalized communities, teaching them how to grow and sell nutritious food to the people who need it. Marcus Carpenter is the founder of Route 1, an organization that focuses on introducing farming to people and farmers to the people through a variety of educational and business programs with a focus on addressing the challenges facing the poorest communities in Minnesota. Carpenter grew up on 108 acres of farmland in Arkansas, bought by his great-grandmother Sally in 1914, who worked the land down a dirt road in a country house with 13 children. Route 1 was the name of the old dirt road, but its approach to agriculture is anything but old. The program and facilities include Freight Farm, where hydroponic gardens grow a variety of food inside shipping containers equivalent to 4 acres of farmland. It includes the Emerging Farmers Institute, offering intensive virtual coursework on the fundamentals of farming, while also including sessions aimed at tackling the most commonly faced mental stressors of working in agriculture. Additionally, Route 1 offers the Seeds to Success Youth Academy, where youth struggling in school can pursue agricultural excellence in Minnesota. In Minnesota, 1 in 15 people experience food insecurity. The situation is worse for communities of color, with Black residents facing a staggering rate of 1 in 4. The Seeds to Success program wraps up on August 14th, where most of the 7 students in the program come from these disadvantaged backgrounds. Addressing this, Carpenter has incorporated a small variety of African crops that can tolerate Minnesota's soil and weather, adding a cultural component that he believes helps drive home the point that working the land and reaping the rewards is the birthright and benefit of all mankind. Love to hear all the good work and good news around the world. All right, and for my guest today is Tony Romero. He is the co-founder and community organizer for Latinos United for a New America. And with that, I'd like to welcome Tony to our show. Hi, Tony, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So why don't we go ahead and start out and have you tell us and our viewers about your organization?
Yeah. So Latinos United for a New America, we are an organization. We are a grassroots organization that focuses on organizing Latino communities. We are based in San Jose, California, more specifically on the east side of San Jose. And what we do is we build the capacity of our constituents, our members, so that they can build the power to participate civically in actions, so that they can positively influence a policy, or if there's a policy that affects them, they can fight against it. And we have worked on a lot of different issues, different campaigns. We have worked on immigration reform in the past. We have worked on transportation. We have worked on doing a census campaign, so making sure everyone, every household is counted. We have done education outreach, so we partner with San Jose City Community College to see what resources they could bring to the east side of San Jose. We are also working with the residents of a mobile home park, where they want to create a housing cooperative so that they themselves can create an affordable housing opportunity. They can own the house, the park, and they can be house owners of their own property. Currently, we are also working on housing. Housing is a big topic here in San Jose, and we are working on environmental justice. There is just a lot of pollution for traffic congestions, the freeways, there are a lot of health risks that a lot of our communities have experienced, like asthma. So we are trying to educate, empower, like I mentioned, participate civically, so that we can make changes locally with the San Jose City Council, county-wise with Santa Clara County, and yeah, we haven't worked on a campaign at the state level, but right now the work is to impact on a smaller scale, so that we can have yeah, so that our families can have a better life and a better future.
Yeah, that's great. Definitely needed resources and education in the area. So that is very good. And so you may have touched on this, but maybe you could lay out specifically what is the goal and purpose of Latinos United?
Yeah, we want to engage the Latino community so that they themselves can build the capacity to participate civically and change their lives. So we have our saying that participation is a solution, and we want to make sure that residents, the Latino residents, participate, get to meet their city council representative. Like I mentioned earlier, when there are policies that affect them positive or negatively, they can raise their voice. They can have a seat on the table, per se, like they can be part of the decision making, so that they can make an impact, not just on their life, but on their future, the future of their children, and they can live a fruitful life here in San Jose.
That's great. And when you say that they can change their lives, like what specifically are you referring to?
Yeah, like for example, like I mentioned, our biggest campaign is housing, and one of the problems or situations that our constituents face is that the rent is too high, and the rent just keeps getting up. Where many residents who are experiencing displacement, um, they either cannot afford to live in San Jose anymore, so they have to move to another city where they can afford the rent, or if the rent just keeps going high, like they cannot find alternatives in the city of San Jose. So a few months ago, Luna, alongside other organizations, we advocated for a policy called tenants preference policy, where if there is affordable housing options available, the owner or the landlord should allocate certain amounts for residents who live in San Jose, who are at risk of being displaced because of the prices. So we try to engage our constituents and raise their voices so that this type of policies, like the tenants preference policies, can help have some protections for tenants who live here in San Jose, and they don't have to be displaced.
That's excellent. And how have you helped families to become more established in a community?
Yes, and we help, and I think housing is. I think it all comes back to housing, because my experience, when we want a family to be stable, to have a dignified life here in San Jose. We have seen that when people are at risk of displacement, whether they miss a payment, whether they're at risk of having to move out, that does affect the whole family. And I've had conversations where the kids are having mental health issues. They cannot focus on school. They're not, because their focus is on what if we get displaced? What if we become homeless? What if we get pushed out? And a lot of those definitely affects the communities, affects the people that we work with, because they cannot participate, they cannot focus on their own issues if they feel that they are being they are on the process of being evicted, or the rent is too high that they have to move out. So I think for us, the housing component is such a big issue that we want to make sure that people have a dignified house, a place where they can afford, they can live, so that they themselves can participate in other actions, and they can be a part of San Jose for the long term.
That's great. Yeah, that's definitely needed, and to be part of a community and participate. So I know that's one of your fundamental, is the participation, and I think anyone in any community, that definitely goes a very long way. And so what is the biggest barrier that you've run into to achieving your goals?
The biggest barrier, it's a bit of both. Like I mentioned, if people don't feel they have their focus is on if they get evicted or if they had to move out, the participation is very limited, and I know that for us to make a change, to make an influence on politicians, like we can do that by the power of numbers, and the barrier is if people are experiencing this housing issue, then they cannot participate, and thus we cannot demonstrate the power that we have. So that's a big barrier. Another barrier is trying to build that connection between city council representatives. Like I mentioned, most of our advocacy, most of our civic engagement is happening locally with the San Jose City Council. And yeah, like sometimes the influences can affect how like the policies that we want to focus. So and I know that I mentioned tenants preference policy that it was successful, but we also have a policy called COPA, Community Opportunity to Purchase Act, where we work almost for a year, meeting with City Council, having meetings, doing these actions, participating civically, and at the end of the day, City Council decided not to pass it. So I think those are the two biggest barriers, just participation from our constituents just based on the issues that they're experiencing, and then City Council sometimes not supporting our advocacy.
Yeah, absolutely. And how is it working with the city government?
It's we do have representatives that believe in our mission, that believe in our goals, and they have supported us throughout the life of the organization. And then there's also some council members who just would not even take a meeting with us. So we are lucky that we have had support throughout the history of Luna, because it's not just building the power of community, it's also building those connections, those relationships with politicians, with people that make decisions. And yeah, I think we have been lucky that there are representatives that believe in our mission and that believe in the work that we do.
Yeah, that's definitely always a plus when you can have someone in power who can back, a mission in an organization. So how has the community responded to your organization?
For the most part, positively. We have the way we do work is we go to the communities, we door knock, we canvas, we meet the community on their own space. We talk about them. We talk about what problems they see. We talk about like what are the solutions they would like to implement. And then we conduct house meetings. So we try to do very local, very grassroots, because we believe that that's where the change happens. Like first in the homes of our community. So once we have community meetings, we start figuring out like what are the solutions we want to implement, how can we do it, and in those conversations we start identifying what is it that what type of capacity we can build on our community. Like, do they feel nervous talking to a representative? Do they feel nervous giving public comments in public? How can we help them get over those fears? Do they want to lead? Do they want to be the leaders in their community? So I think we also try to identify those organic leaders, so that it's not just Luna, it's not just the organizers leading all the work, leading all the planning, but it's also the community leaders who want to take on those leadership roles and want to make those actions, participate, and help create the civic engagement action, so that like we can create a campaign plan. We identify what is it, the action that we want to take, who's gonna take it, and then we start planning so that what our campaigns, our work can be successful.
Got it. And so in terms of where your community members, like where are they originating from, in terms of, like then finally locating in San Jose?
Yeah. The majority of our communities, we do work with, again, a lot of people who have experienced oppression, who have experienced difficulties, and most of those people are immigrants who have lived here for many years, who have not been able to succeed, who do not have the opportunity to get a raise, do not have the opportunity to get other job opportunities, and most of the immigrants that we work with, they are based on East San Jose, and that's where most of our work is focused. So that's where all the need is. It's on East San Jose, and we try to, like I mentioned, help them build the capacity so that they themselves can come and meet representatives, talk to, find resources, find other things that can help make their community better.
Yeah, and I think that's great, because you would know better than I, but it seems like something that is needed. I have a question in terms of immigration, and is the process, I'm gonna see how I want to word this question. I'm not opposed to immigration. I think one should be able to live where they want to live across the globe, as long as it's done within the legal rights of everyone and for that country. And so I'm just curious, from your experience and from your community members, when someone comes to the United States as an immigrant, if that process is there a process that sets them up for success to be able to flourish in this country? Or are there missing resources or missing educational pieces that if had, without turning around and giving someone $100,000, because right, I don't think the government should be buying people houses, but you know, I do think one should have the opportunity to have education and resources to flourish and prosper.
Yeah.
So I'm just, you know, curious from, what
Yeah.
your opinion is on that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of our focus or work is being on advocating for reform, advocating for a way for people that live here 10, 15, 20 years and who have become great citizens, have paid their taxes. They themselves should have the opportunity to apply for residency, and a lot of it that's the difficult situation is a lot of the policies, unfortunately, on the federal level makes it very difficult for people who have lived here 10, 15, 20 years to have that opportunity. And that has been our focus when in the past year or so is how can we advocate, how can we put pressure on federal politicians, congressmen, the president, the vice president, to create a reform that can help many of the people that have been here for many, many years. And have that opportunity to get that process, because at the end of the day, that's all that they are asking is just the opportunity to become residents, to live a dignified life, to not be afraid of being deported. Sure. I think that's all what our constituents are asking, just that opportunity where they themselves can succeed, because
sure.
Like I mentioned, like job opportunities for people undocumented are very limited, and unfortunately sometimes the employer can take advantage of those situations. So
let me ask you this real quick. I'm going to interject. Let me ask you, so is there a difference between a U.S. citizen and a resident?
Yes.
And what is the difference?
A resident is a resident just basically it allows a person to be in the United States. They can go out, they can travel. For the most part, it's on a limited time. Some residencies can be 3 years, other 5 years, other 10 years. And they do not have the right to vote, and it's just my understanding is just it's the first step before allowing immigrants to become citizens. So when people come with and that is when immigrants come, they decide to apply, they get approved. It's kind of like the process or the timing to allow immigrants come to the U.S. to become citizens.
Sure. So they enter the United States, right? They get residency for whatever that may be, 1 to 5 years, let's just call it. Then within that time of that residency, they have the opportunity to become a U.S. citizen. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then once they have citizenship, they have the right to vote,
Yes.
and they are treated as someone who was born in the United States, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Legally. Now, whether that happens and whether there's maybe some racism and things, that's not. But from a legal standpoint, once someone gets citizenship, they then have the same rights legally within the United States as I was born in the United States, so we can just compare it to me. Right? Okay.
Yes.
Now, okay, cool. I just want to make sure that gets defined for our viewers. Sometimes I think it can get misinterpreted or whatnot. So then we have, what you brought up was an undocumented. So I just want to give you my understanding. You totally correct me if I'm wrong. An undocumented individual, someone who came in to the United States but didn't go through the legal process, whatever that may be. Now, okay, good. So then someone who is undocumented, can't necessarily legally get a job because you have to have a visa, a driver's license, or a Social Security, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But then as an undocumented individual, they have the opportunity to, can they still claim residency? I mean, not claim, but can they go get residency? Can they take the legal path in the United States if they're in here and they're undocumented?
That's conversations I have with immigration attorneys. There are different paths, different application process, and there are multiple ways. I think the biggest example is if they marry a U.S. citizen. I think the U.S. citizen can help them with this process. But there are other ways. My understanding is also these processes can take multiple years.
Sure.
It takes time. That's my understanding. It's just that there are multiple ways, and I think the most common way is if marrying a U.S. Citizen can help with this process.
Probably this most straightforward way.
Yes,
I say that
exactly.
jokingly. Okay, got it. Okay, good. So now here my question is within, because the U.S. has some process, right, that you go from, as an immigrant, you come into the United States, right, you get a residency, you get documented, and then you're availed to some resources and some education, right? And I'm not specifically sure what those are, so I don't even want to guess, right? My question is, within those resources, and if let's just say I came into the United States as an immigrant, right? Are those resources in education, and I get residency and I get documented, that is provided to them, does that allow them to be set up for success to become a resident in the United States and follow our laws and get a job and, you know, live the American dream, whatever that is at this point in time? I guess that's my question.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't have an answer to that. I believe that probably if that resources or education is available, and this is an opinion, I don't know if it's true, but probably immigration attorneys will be more familiar with this information. And yeah, like I don't know if there is that information that people can follow to apply for a specific process. Yeah, I think that's just more of an immigration attorney might have better idea.
Sure.
Of how this information, if it's available, could be shared, could be spread out, or but yeah, I don't think I don't have that information.
Sure. Right, because, you know, part of the human rights is, right, you have the right to citizenship, you have the right to travel within your country, and you have the right to seek asylum, and you have the right to kind of live where you want.
Yes.
Yeah, but those, I think any country, you know, would be, and again, I'm not going to pretend that I know specifically how it all works, but to make it all work, right, for that country, because every country, as we know, is going to be set up differently and have different laws and have different morals and what they are set up for others to succeed in, right? That if I'm going to allow someone into my country, which again we all have the right to do, and I think one should be able to, that there would be education on, like, okay, good, so these are our laws, and this is what it looks like when you break a law, and these are this is our moral code or our standards, and this is how you get a job, and this is, you know, to to have successful countries, right?
Yeah.
And so I just was curious on, I mean, I've only lived in the United States, but I obviously have traveled the world a little bit and have seen different, you go to Europe and they just have different ways they live, right? And you go to South America and they just have different ways they live. And it's the differences within mankind that keep things interesting, right? We all don't want to be the same. We all don't need to have the same likes and dislikes, right? We all have our freedom of expression and belief. And I think that is as an individual, that is as a community, that can be as a culture, and then that can be as a country and a, so anyways, I just was curious. But yeah, it's very, very valid work that your organization is doing. And I think participation, like one of your biggest mantras is participation. And I think for any community to strive, it needs its constituents to participate and to make that area better. So that's great. Yeah. And do you have any, I'm gonna ask you two questions. Are there any current events or upcoming events?
Mm-hmm. No, we had our 10-year anniversary, which we celebrated with the gala, and we were very, very happy because Luna, like I mentioned, is a grassroots, very small organization. We are 7 staff, and to be working on this for 10 years, I think I'm sure the founder is very, very happy with where the organization is going. And no, at the moment we don't have any events. I think we are just trying to see what issues or policies are being presented, especially on housing. And I think we are just preparing to participate civically on any potential policies or decisions that will be made locally and the county level.
That's awesome. Great. And if someone wanted to get in touch with your organization, how would they do so?
Yeah, they can follow our website, LatinosUnidos.org, and they can see all the work that we're doing, the different campaigns. Like I mentioned, we work on different neighborhoods. We call them chapters, and they can see a lot of the work that we are doing. So yeah, they can follow our website. That would be great.
Excellent. And so we ask all of our guests this final question as we come to the close of the interview, and that is, what is your favorite human right and why?
Yeah, there are 3 that caught my attention, and I think they're similar. You have rights no matter where you go, which is number 6. Food and shelter for all, number 25, and the right to seek a safe place to live, number 14. I would say number 14 is my favorite one because maybe it's my interpretation, but it's both allowing people to flee or not to look for a better place if their home country is unsafe, and also kind of discussing about housing. It is getting more difficult to find affordable housing, especially for vulnerable communities, low-income communities. It's, I think, having that as a human right, having a safe place to live, is where our mission is going, is where our work is going, because housing is just such a big issue, and we don't want displacement to happen all over the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think your interpretation of that article is correct in terms of having a safe place to live, and I would agree with you that housing is a crisis, not only nationally but across the world, and it is something that definitely needs to be fixed, and we need to continue to push the issue and come up with solutions and get everyone in safe housing. Well, Tony, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for what you do with your organization, and it was a pleasure speaking with you today.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's our show for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned some valuable information. And as always, I'm always interested in what you're going to do with the information, how you're going to start to jump on board and participate in the education and fighting for everyone's human rights. Until next time, I will see you then.